Welcome to Midway Minute, everyone. I am Kevin Cada. That is Scott Coral, and joining us today is Bleacher Nation's Luis Medina. I am a huge fan, and part of the reason is that I really think that Luis's outlook on the team is very similar to mine. We're usually optimistic. We really want the Bears to win. I wake up every day thinking about that Super Bowl. How can they get there? While also knowing it's probably not going to happen. So you have to maintain that sense of humor. You can find him at Bleacher Nation, where he is the Bears writer, and on Twitter at BN Bears. I think that's right. Is that right?
BN_Bears.
_Bears. So anyway, welcome to Midway Minute, Luis.
I am so happy to be here.
So we're headed into the NFL draft right now. The Bears have the 20th pick as we tape this. Obviously been a lot of talk about trading up for a quarterback, trading back, collecting more picks, staying where you're at. Where are you at with the Bears pick right now?
I am in Ron Burgundy's glass case of emotions. I am really torn because I really like the quarterbacks in this draft. Obviously, everyone loves Trevor Lawrence. Zach Wilson was the Joe Burrow of this class. Like, the hype machine went through the roof during the season. There's some love for Trey Lance, who's like an athletic gift, big arm, can run. There's late love for Mac Jones after what he did at Alabama, and Justin Fields he's been my QB too since last summer. So there's a lot to love about this quarterback class. But here's my issue: Ryan Pace. He's done nothing to make me trust him. When it comes to picking a quarterback, because he's swung at miss at so many different levels. It's whether it's the Glennon pick, like the contract is what it is, and it was a 1-year deal basically. Mm-hmm. But like just picking that guy, you could have given that deal to any other quarterback, any number of quarterbacks, and I'd have been okay with it. Glennon was just not my cup of tea, and he proved not to be. Picking Trubisky, I know he was the number one quarterback of that class for a lot of insiders, but I don't think the Bears did the due diligence. I know the Tribune had a really great report that we often cite as, hey, they really didn't do the things they needed to do to unearth the quarterback that was right for them. And then the Nick Foles thing we saw kind of fall apart last year with how they managed him, how they managed the line in front of him. So it's just like, okay, now what? Like, I'm supposed to trust you with Andy Dalton because Bill Lazor trusts Andy Dalton? I have so many hangups, but I like if the Bears were able to trade up to 4 and get Justin Fields, I might throw a parade. I'll throw a party. I'll throw a party if that happens. But like, I'm gonna have in the back of my mind, like, do I really trust this guy? And that's where my hangup is.
I think that's the one thing that Matt Nagy has been trying to tell everybody is, what do you think the Bears would have been if we had a competent quarterback? Trubisky was just not the answer, and obviously the NFL showed that by Buffalo giving him a 1-year deal to be the backup to Josh Allen. That's what the rest of the NFL thought of him. Now they have Andy Dalton. Is he competent? Yeah, he's competent. Is he going to be great by any stretch? Probably not. But I think Nagy, all he wants is a competent guy. Is that good enough for the Bears?
Good enough for now. The thing about Nagy is this is what really intrigues me about this draft is that Nagy is a part of the picture now. And the Bears, with Nagy, Lazor, and John DeFilippo, I think are in a better situation to pick a quarterback now than they were in 2017. Think about it this way. In 2017, the Bears, like that brain trust was Pace, John Fox, Dave Ragone, Dowell Loggins. None of those guys had ever drafted a first-round quarterback at any stage of their football lives. Not while Fox was a head coach in Carolina, not while Pace was running things, in different roles with the Saints, not Loggins at any stop in his NFL career, not Ragone at any stop in his career. And I know Nagy was part of that was part of that process in Kansas City when they picked Mahomes. And being attached at the hip with Andy Reid, I know he wasn't part of the staff when they drafted McNabb, but he was part of those staffs that did draft quarterbacks. So I'm in a better place now, thinking like, okay, like these guys can handle this. I wasn't in that place back in 2017, so see, Kevin, this is where we are. Like, I want to be optimistic, and there are signs that I can't. Like, I have reasons that I can't be optimistic, but I just can't get all the way there, knowing what we've lived through.
Yeah, I can tell you that I'm really not optimistic about this season at all. I just really feel like there's so much wrong in the water at Hallis Hall, and there's so many missing foundational pieces. We've seen in the last decade the way to build a winner, unless you're trading for Tom Brady and his black magic that he's able to pull off wherever he goes, is to get that young quarterback on the rookie contract and already have enough pieces in place, really to be able to complement those pieces with some bigger, free agent acquisitions. The Bears are not there. The Bears are not a quarterback away right now, I don't think. You've really got to build up both lines. You've got a lot of glamour positions right now missing and in need of attention. So to me, it's like, okay, yeah, you could trade up and get one of those top 4 or 5 quarterbacks. I still think it's a real gamble. I feel with like Mac Jones, he's the sort of guy that we've kind of talked himself into. His like what average draft position has gone from 17 or 18. Then from a gambling standpoint, I think they've gambled it all the way up into the mid first 10 or whatever. So I don't know. I'm not that optimistic. But at the same time too, Ryan Pace did have a nice draft last year, and there's a lot of good pieces there that could really blossom into the next course. So to me, it's like, okay, take your picks at 20, get your good pick in the second round. If you could trade back and collect some more, I'm all for it, because we know that Ryan Pace has had pretty good track record on the second and third days of the draft.
Yeah, so the recent draft history, and really the draft history for Pace since coming to Chicago, is rounds 2 through 6, pretty decent. They've gotten starters both sides of the line. They've gotten good defensive backs. They've gotten solid running backs. It's just, I keep coming back to Ryan Pace, and just like, I remember when I had the moment that Mitch wasn't going to be the guy during the Saints game in 2019 at Soldier Field. He came back. They were off an extended. I don't think if they were off the bye, but they were off an extended. No, they were off the bye. It was after the Raiders game.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I had high end zone seats, and I was just sitting there, and I'd be watching this guy get open, and Mitch isn't looking that way. That guy get open, and he's dumping it down before like even his progressions. Like that was like the moment for me, was just like, this isn't gonna be it. And then I would think also like, okay, this might not be it, but what could be is this team, just looking at the roster construction, was built for a quarterback on the rookie deal. They were paying, they were paying Khalil Mack, they're paying all these other guys, especially on defense. Like, hey, once Mitch's rookie contract comes up, then you could roll the dice again on another rookie quarterback. The problem is they kept throwing money at other problems, and now it's just like, well, you'd love to be that team that can go back to, all right, the Mitch thing failed, but hey, we're still in a good position. We're going to go roll the dice with another rookie quarterback. But they're just, like you said, not in that position, because Robert Quinn didn't do what we thought he would be. Jimmy Graham is still employed by the Bears despite his cap hit. Eddie Jackson had a down year last year, and that's a lot of money you spent on safety. And you had to pay, whatever that cap, that dead cap was, to get rid of Kyle Fuller. So just the decision, the process, I'm a process guy. Good process leads to good results. Poor process is leading to us to where we are now, and it's just agonizing.
The thing that annoys me right now is that Kyle Fuller decision is now cornerback is an issue that you have to address in the draft when it wasn't before. And it's like, that just kills me. So to me, that lets me know.
It was a position they needed to address, and now it's even more of a position they needed to address, because that Week 17 game, really both meetings against the Packers, I'm tired of watching Devontae Adams line up in the slot and just bully slot corners. So I'm just like, the Bears need a slot corner, and eventually they're going to need a corner to replace Kyle Fuller, because Kyle Fuller ain't going to play forever. And now they need both.
Yeah, that's about the best look that I would have given. You guys mentioned that you guys are optimistic. Does that mean I'm a pessimist? Like, am I just the pessimist?
You're the realist.
Of the group? I would say that I do feel like I am that realist guy. you guys have both mentioned that the Bears have a lot of holes. What is the first hole that you think that they should plug?
I mean, outside of quarterback, it should be tackle. It should be somewhere on that offensive line. Cornerback. I mean, look, you face Aaron Rodgers twice a year. Like, you're gonna need some defensive backs. Wide receiver, because you need someone who can catch the ball too. Because Allen Robinson is you don't know what his future is. So many holes.
So little time.
Little picks.
Who is someone that you really like? I mean, going through some of these prospects, I mean, regardless of position, like, and looking at tape, who have you fallen in love with these last few months?
Oh man, there's so many guys I have. All right, so from a value standpoint in round one, assuming they don't trade up for a quarterback, I kind of like Caleb Farley, the cornerback from Virginia Tech. He is a guy who's had a little bit of a medical hang-up with a back issue. It doesn't sound super serious. Easy for me to say, it's not my back, but like the way that people talk about him reminds me of the way of how people talk about Eddie Jackson in 2017. So I was like, yeah, Eddie's had some knee issues. He had a screw put in his leg, and he was a guy who I thought had first round talent, would go in day 2, and didn't end up going to round 4. So like, if the Bears end up with in a place where they can take Farley, that fills your cornerback need right away. I like Tevin Jenkins, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma State. I think he's a right tackle long term, but he plays with an edge and he's got some strength. Kind of reminds me of how Kyle Long was early in his Bears career. Like, you need an MFer at some point on that offensive line, and like, I think the Bears have an okay offensive line, but you need a guy who sets an edge up front, and that's a guy for me. The Bears don't need running backs right now, which is unfortunate because I think this is a really good running back class. I kind of like the sleeper quarterback for me is Kellen Mond, the kid from Texas A&M. He's got versatility. He can dual option kind of guy. Got some arm strength. Got some swag too. He scripted his own pro day, which is unheard of. Like, usually guys get a quarterback coach and get to say and do the right things in front of NFL guys. He did it all on his own. And he's like, hey, look, I was a 4-year starter. Team should be looking at me more than some of these other guys. I'm just like, all right, I don't know if you're going to be good, but I like the swagger.
I like what you said about Kyle Long. That offensive line does need an identity. I think the team does going forward. I mean, obviously they're in a transition. Probably, Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn and all the older players are probably going to be around the next time the Bears win the Super Bowl. We may not be around next time the Bears win the Super Bowl, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they are going to need leaders. That offensive line has really not had a great leader. Certainly not one like Kyle Long. Interestingly, Kyle Long was picked with the 20th pick, and that's the last time the Bears drafted that spot. So,
and that was a good pick. Like, that's the kind of player you want to take with that pick. A guy who, especially a lineman, a guy who you think can play multiple spots, a guy who can start right away. Like, that 20th pick shouldn't be a project. It should be a guy that plugs into the starting lineup no matter what position he plays right away.
Completely That's agree. The thing. You mentioned Kyle Long having that attitude, having that swag. And then Tevin Jenkins being that so-called, as you put it, MFer at right tackle. Here's the fun part, I think, about that. You mentioned needing those types of guys. Whitehair is that kind of guy. Cody Whitehair is that kind of guy. He'd probably slot in at right guard. If you select Jenkins with the 20th pick, you now have a right guard and a right tackle that are going to be beasts. That's a group you can win with as long as you don't screw it up or those guys don't get injured. Your thoughts?
Oh man, you opened an idea that I've kind of had in a draft folder, so I'm going to share it now. If the Bears can make a trade without giving up everything to get a quarterback, for example, there are scenarios where they don't give up their second round pick. And if I was Ryan Pace, I'd be like, look, if you think our first round pick is going to be valuable next year, we shouldn't have to give you our second round pick. If you can take that second round pick and move back into the draft for that tackle in the back end of the first round for that tackle, you do it. Or even if, let's say, the Bears want to go with a wide receiver in that first round at 20. Maybe it's Rondale Moore from Purdue. Maybe it's Kadarius Toney from Florida. You just take that second round pick and you team it with a pick in next year's draft and be like, hey, let me get one of these first round tackles. And now you're doubling up on offense. Now you're talking about building around Andy Dalton and whatever quarterback you draft later. And it's not the best option, but it's an intriguing one.
You know, you mentioned Kadarius Toney, Eric Edholm in his mock draft from Tuesday, the 13th. He said that Toney, there were two different comparisons. He compares himself, Toney, to Alvin Kamara, which I think is an interesting proposition because Kamara is one of the most versatile guys in the NFL right now. But an actual evaluator, a talent evaluator, compared Toney to a former Bear, Devin Hester. How exciting would that be for the Bears if they were to get somebody like him?
He kind of does. Kadarius Toney reminds me of how I wanted the Bears to use Devin Hester when they used him on offense. I didn't want him to be a traditional wide receiver because he just wasn't a traditional wide receiver. He's a guy who you get in space, whether it's through jet sweeps, quick screens, slant routes, something that can get him in space quick and get him off and running. That's what Toney does really well. If you look at his game tape, it's always him in space, him going around, and just like him running past everybody. Getting a guy like that on the Bears would be fun. We haven't had a guy like that in a while. Like Tariq Cohen has those abilities, but he's just not used often enough because he's not a big enough guy. You don't want to take, that risk. So like, man, Toney would be fun to have on this team.
It's been a while since we've had that great Tariq Cohen highlight too. Like I missed that. Like it's been like a couple of years now. So it would be great to see Toney doing that.
It does make me wonder though, did the Bears just not use Cohen and probably not use everybody else properly because they didn't have a quarterback who could do literally anything? Trubisky could not do anything. Are they just not being able, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, are they not able to use the guys properly because they had a quarterback who just wasn't competent?
And that's the thing when it comes to Nagy. It's just like, you don't know what his system is or what it can be because the quarterback was limited. And like, look, I have my issues with Mitch, and I try not to pile on him because like everyone else.
I did.
And it is totally fair. It's totally fair. But like, we need to be real about what Mitchell's limitations were, and there were a lot. Like, I give so much credit to Pace, not to Pace. Oof, that's a first. To Nagy and Bill Lazor for like, hey, that end of year run where they were scoring points, they masked a lot of the things that Mitch was doing poorly, the stuff that got him benched. So I think with like a competent quarterback, they should be able to move the ball and score some points.
So this is Nagy's, really first chance to do this. 4 years into it. We'll wrap this up here. But I want to know, gut feeling, do you think this is the last draft that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy oversee?
Yes. That's my bold prediction. It's just like my Super Bowl prediction is that the Bears go the 2019 Jets route, let Ryan Pace do this draft, and then tell him to hit the road, like the Jets did with their GM, and then they hired Joe Douglas with Champ Kelly being the guy as the runner-up. Like, it would just be so Bears to just be like, hey, like, we're gonna do this. Pace, hit the road. Champ Kelly, you're elevated to GM. You get a clean slate. You get to decide what happens with Matt Nagy's future. It's outside the box, but we've seen it work kind of with the Jets. I mean, hey, they're in a position they hired a new coach that a lot of people like, and they're in a position to get a quarterback everyone likes. So
I talk myself into so many different scenarios. Like, I could see Ryan Pace staying for the next 10 years because he's such a favorite son of the McCaskies, and then I could also kind of just see him, the Bears brass really kowtowing to public pressure. Because I think this is like a 4-12, 5-11 season. And obviously that's not going to cut it. And the pressure will be so immense that the Bears won't have but any choice to get rid of him. So I don't know. Scott, you break the tie here.
To me, there's cause for optimism, because literally, like, there are chairs in my room that I'm currently in that I think were better passers than Mitch Trubisky. So I want to know what type of offense Matt Nagy's playbook truly is. I believe it was in 2018 and 2019. The Bears playbook basically was something like top 5 in wide receivers that are open. Now, obviously, there wasn't a whole lot of wide receivers who caught balls because they were just not catchable. But if you're open, there is a way to get the ball to them.
Yeah.
And then we think of, Javon Wims in the end zone against the Saints, and that's neither here nor there.
I completely blocked that from memory, Scott.
But I'm just saying, I think that you need a competent quarterback before you can find out, okay, is this offense truly worth what Matt Nagy believes it truly is? I want him to be himself. He's going to go back to calling plays this year, so Lazor and DiFilippo won't be doing that. But I'm thinking that they're going to have a lot of influence over what Nagy does. That's going to be great. The question is can Nagy get out of his own way and stop trying to be cute when he just needs 3 yards, when he just needs a first down? I don't need you to be cute. I just need you to go get that first down so we have another 3 or 4 plays to move the ball. That's all. So I'm not sure. I think they're going to be better than 4-12 and 5-11, but it really does depend upon what Pace does in the draft. If they go up and get a quarterback, while that's going to be great, they're going to leave a lot of holes on the offensive line, and they're just not going to be able to do anything, at least probably in the next 3 years. That's a long time to wait for a winning team. So at this point, I would say either stand pat or trade back and get some assets.
Yeah, no more middling. Just pick a lane and go with it.
Get a plan and execute on it. Yeah, like I think someone in the Athletics said the Bears are the prime example of somebody without a plan. That's all we're asking for is a plan. Tell us what the plan is. Tell us how you are going to get us back to a Super Bowl. It's been 36 years since they've been there. I was 6 years old when it happened. It's killing me. I need to see another Bears Super Bowl. So
the only time I've seen the Bears in the Super Bowl was 41, and really that ended after Devin Hester returned that touchdown.
Like, it did. That's
nothing
all.
else happened.
So, all right. Well, Luis, we appreciate you stopping by. We want you to enjoy the draft, and hopefully we will talk to you more as the 2021 Bears season comes up.
Absolutely. Can't wait. This draft is going to be an absolute treat, one way or another.
Thanks, man.